you were speaking to the graduating class of social workers, and you said that if you don't work on your own personal traumas every single day, then you can't show up as a rabbi, just like they should be working on their own personal issues, because you can't show up to help anybody unless you're working on your own issues. So I'm curious to understand, and I'm sure people here would want to hear, like, so how does one do that? How do you do that? How do you work on those personal issues?
Yeah. So first of all, I think the premise is critical, and people often don't realize how critical it is because, again, it's not conscious corruption. It's not that the therapist or the rabbi is going to sit down with a client and
Right.
consciously distort a message
Of
because they're
course.
not worked out. There are
Right.
people who are very sick, but we're not
Hmm.
talking about that.
Right.
Those are people who are sick and they need a lot of help.
Hmm.
We're talking about us people who are more or less, trying to help and be nice and be kind and do the right thing. But the fact is that it's the internal things that I am entangled with. And as
Hmm.
long as I don't disentangle, I don't even realize how
Can you
much
give us an
projection there
example?
is. Of course. Sometimes I spoke to a therapist the other day whom I know very, very well, and we're close friends. And I asked him a question because I know I also struggle with this, and I think it's not so comfortable to talk about, but I'm bringing it out because I think we have to be honest about these things. And I told them, I know you're a very popular marriage therapist. I know many women come to you individually without their husbands. I'm
Hmm.
sure sometimes you meet a very intelligent woman who finds comfort in you much more than in her husband
Hmm.
because she could
Hmm.
tell you things she's not telling your husband.
Hmm.
There is an intimacy that's created in that room. You're giving her advice that may be saving her life. She's spilling all the beans. What do you do if your mind gets overtaken by some form of emotion that is inappropriate
Hmm.
outside of your own spouse? This is another woman.
Hmm.
I'm just wondering how you deal with it. And he said to me, he looked at me, and without skipping a heartbeat, he says, this is one of the most important questions that I have to ask myself every day. And the first thing I
Hmm.
know is that if I'm not honest with myself, if I cannot acknowledge that this is what's happening in the office right now, I must tell her that I cannot be her therapist because I will be destroying her life
Hmm.
rather than helping her life because in a subconscious way, I will want to keep this relationship going. I want her to
Hmm.
come back. I'm
Hmm.
gaining out of the therapy too. This
Hmm.
relationship is doing something for me. So here, it almost seems like he's a nice person. He likes her. He's here for her. He may even be sending her a text to find out how she's doing at night. And
Hmm.
nothing non kosher dramatic happened, but really, he's not her therapist anymore. There's
Right.
something he's getting out of this. So who knows if subconsciously the advice he's giving her in many ways is not helping her marriage. It's
Do
advice
you
that's
think that?
keeping her in the office. So he told me if I'm not honest about this, first thing, if I am not brutally honest that there's something very exciting about the meeting, I'm almost looking forward to her visit.
Hmm.
This is a recipe for absolute destruction. And I know how many people have been hurt by therapists and rabbis who have
Right.
not worked out.
Right. For
And this is
sure.
true for all of us. And the first thing is honesty, brutal honesty. And then I have to ask myself the next question. Do I have the resources to be able to acknowledge this challenge I have and really be a therapist for this woman or for this man?
Hmm. Hmm.
So that's just one classic example,
Do,
but there are
do you
so
think
many
that, I
more.
mean, that's a good example. Do you think anyone could be so honest? Do you think that women should be seeing male therapists or vice versa?
I think I think I think there are more challenges than are acknowledged in this
Hmm.
because there are deep emotions that come up and we're not even in control of them and it's nobody's fault. It's not like anybody's trying to do anything wrong. And therefore I
100%.
think if you don't have a support system and people you
Hmm.
trust who can challenge you and you can
Hmm.
make what we call a cheshbon hanefesh, a real reckoning of the soul of what's happening and how it's affecting you, then
Hmm.
you really have to be very, very careful because in an
Hmm.
unconscious way, it's going to be hurtful. And I know with myself, sometimes I give classes, people come for counseling,
Hmm.
and things trigger me. There's things that
Hmm.
trigger me. Sometimes the person I find to be so clueless and obnoxious, and I feel that I hate them.
Hmm.
But if I hate them, how am I going to help them? I just want to
Hmm.
slap them in their face and say, you have narcissistic personality disorder. Get out of my life right now. I
Hmm.
could say that I may even be right, maybe not,
Hmm.
but I really have to come from a different place if I want to help them. I remember a story I heard from the Rebbe himself, also a life changing story. He's heard this from his father in law, who heard it all the way back from the source. that the Mittler Rebbe is the second Chabad Rebbe, the son of the founder of Chabad, the son of the Alter Rebbe. His name was Rabbi Dov Ber, and he was
Mhm.
seeing people in a city called Vitebsk in Belarus. And somebody came to see him in the middle of the conversation. He interrupted the encounter and he told his secretary that he cannot see any people any longer. And for
Mm.
3 days, he was in isolation. And later, they knew he was fasting. He was praying. He was reciting Psalms. He was meditating, and they heard him crying from the other side of the door. It took 3 days until he
Wow.
resumed the conversations with people. His son asked
Mm.
him what happened. And he said that somebody came here
Mhm.
seeking counsel. And this is what he said: any person who comes here with a problem, I could not help them if I first don't find that
Mm.
struggle within my own soul, even if it's not
Mhm.
identical, but I have to find a glimmer, a residue,
Mhm.
a reflection of this struggle in myself, and then I can assist them. Today, somebody came and he shared something so heinous that he did. And try as I did, I could not find even a subtle reflection of it in my soul. But I knew
Mhm.
that God sent him to me, which means I'm supposed to help him. But I can't help him if I don't identify the struggle in myself. And then I realized that this must be subconscious inside of me.
Mhm.
So it's something that I'm unaware of, which is much worse. So I needed
Mhm.
3 days to do
Hmm.
inner work and discover
Wow.
it. And he told his son, I discovered it. And
Mhm.
he called him back and he helped him out.
Hmm.
I heard the
Wow.
story from the Rebbe.
Right.
And
Wow.
I thought to myself, I think to myself constantly, come
Mhm.
on, why did he have to identify it in himself? This guy is a obnoxious or rude person who did a horrible, horrible thing. What does it have to do with me? Now
Mhm.
help him. The Rebbe said it doesn't work that way
Mhm.
because you'll never be able to understand, empathize, and help repair the
Mhm.
wound in the other person if you don't find it inside yourself. And perhaps
Right.
the deepest idea is I never change other people. I can only
Mhm.
change me.
Right.
I can only
Right.
change me. And by changing me energetically, I can affect that change around me.